Bing bong. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another week of State of Bitcoin. I'm here with my co-host, Brandon. We are recording this on February 10th, 2022. And although we are in the same location, the same physical location, we don't quite have the technology to film a podcast where we're both sitting like in the same room. So Brandon's upstairs, I'm downstairs. We each have one dog
Lowest budget up.
Yeah, we each have one dog in the room that we're in. So you might get a little bit of background noise today from the dogs, but I don't know. We'll see. Brandon, what's going on, man?
Man, my life's in shambles at the moment. I'm not gonna lie to you. I first thing I did when I got up here, I was clearing the desk off to try to get ready to record, and I spilled my Michelob Ultra with a hint of lime all over the place. So not quite the hot start we're looking for, but big time players come up in big time and make big time plays. So I'm looking to step up, and it's a minor setback for a major comeback, and I'm waiting for coach to give me another chance, and here I go.
And yeah, to be clear to our audience, Michelob Ultra is they're not a sponsor of the podcast. They might be in the future. They won't respond to our emails at the moment. Brandon and I love sucking back a few Michelob Ultra limes. So, hey.
No free ads. If you want to send us a 6er, 12er, whatever, we'll drink your beer. We'll try them,
Yeah. Even if it's like, you don't even have to pay us. Just send us the beers for free. Send us a gift card, go to the grocery store, pick them up, do something. I mean, that's the thing, Michelob. Like, you had Lance Armstrong for a while, but I think he's kind of fallen out of good graces with a lot of people. Like, we might be the next big thing for Michelob. I don't know.
Who knows, man? I don't want to forecast into the future, but future is bright.
All right, let's talk a little bit about how we're changing things up. So we got some good feedback from a couple good friends of ours, and we're going to start doing things that are maybe a little bit more opinionated, and we're going to try to shorten things up a bit on the newsletter. On the podcast, I don't care how long we rip. We could rip for as long as we want, as long as there's good stuff to talk about. But on the newsletter, we're each now picking our top 2 or 3 stories from the week and just kind of giving not only what the story is, but also our opinion about it. So we're doing that. We're also shortening up the on-chain stuff. It's just going to be very basic bullet points instead of graphs and trying to interpret graphs and things like that. And then, of course, we're always going to bring you our favorite meme of the week. And then on the podcast, we're really just going to rip on the stories that we saw throughout the week. So that's what we're going to do today. And like I said, we each kind of picked our favorite stories from the week. And let's start with you, Brandon. What was on your radar this week?
All right. Yeah. So the first one I'd like to talk about is, the Valkyrie funds launches the Bitcoin mining ETF, ticker WGMI, as popular on the internet as we all make it. Shout out DJ Khaled. This one got launched. What was it on? I think on Tuesday. And it's the first Bitcoin mining ETF that's available in the United States. I know that there's a few other ones available, like globally. I know there's a couple in Canada. Maybe they have Bitcoin and ETH miners. So I'd be interested to see if this is like the first like strictly Bitcoin one. But we were kind of talking about this before. We talked about this on our spaces a decent amount. And we wrote our newsletter about it on Monday. So maybe it's the whole green candle bump that got this whole pass. But anyway, Valkyrie's launching it. It's available for purchase. They're focusing on ESG, or not on ESG, on renewable energy. So they're kind of going with that ESG narrative, which I think is good, because I think regulators are going to come down on that eventually. But 80% of the companies that they invest in use at least 50% of renewable energies. So they have a lot of different companies in there, Bitfarms, Argo, and just to name a few. I think those are the 2 top holdings. And something interesting too is, as you're an investor in HUD 8, they don't have that in their top 10 holdings. So I think it's overall, it's a good ETF. And, I'm full disclosure, I'm an investor in it, and I know you are as well. And yeah, I like this. And I think, there's going to be winners and losers in the Bitcoin mining space. And I think the winners are going to be focusing primarily on like cheap, reliable, and renewable energy. So, whatever they can get that's, it comes consistently and, is able to be reused, and obviously is very cheap that they can reuse and, implement into their Bitcoin mining, and the more energy that they can obtain and the more, physical miners that they can have, obviously the better. So the fact that they're focusing on this kind of mining, I think, is good for the long term, as even though I think that the short term and the narrative is kind of a load of shit. But that's just my opinion on it. What do you think about this whole WGMI business?
Yeah. So for full disclosure to our listeners, I am a stockholder in WGMI. Uh, they derive at least 50% of their revenue from Bitcoin mining operations and or services related to Bitcoin mining, which I love. I love that Bitfarms is up there on their list, like on their allocations. I'm sure those allocations will be flexible too. But I like it. We got a nice little spike. So it opened at 26.20, and we're currently sitting at 27.50. So up about $1.30 from 26.20, and that's with a I don't know, you could call it sizable. It's not that sizable, but it's a pretty big downward dump after hours. So we'll see how it opens up tomorrow. But yeah, overall, I mean, I'm up 4% on it, and I love that. I'm not a big fan of HUD 8. I've recently lost quite a bit of money on HUD 8, and so I'm not big on that. I was happy to see that they weren't in their top 10 allocations for this ETF. Nothing against you, HUD 8, or the people that work at HUD 8, but I don't know. HUD 8 seemed to be one of those companies that just started talking about Web3 and NFTs and shit like that. And I'm just completely uninterested in that. I don't want to invest in a company that is focusing energy towards something that I don't think will pan out. So yeah, I'm happy to see HUD 8 wasn't big up there. I love Bitfarms. So yeah, we'll see. I mean, I'm excited about it. It's about time we had this ETF, because I think there were already a few ETFs available in other countries, and it just didn't seem, it seemed obvious for the US to get one. And so here we are. Now we've got one.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I know you were mentioning your big loss, but I ended my love affair with Cathy Wood, so I sold off my ARK ETFs to buy into this. So sometimes you got to eat the losses. I don't know. I've had enough with it. I couldn't deal with it anymore, and it's just losing me too much money, and it's floating around the same thing and not doing much. So
Well,
this is something I believe in a little bit more too. So
our ARK is another, now it's a fund, and they seem to be talking a little bit about Web3 and stuff too. And they start getting
exactly.
into this
Yeah.
stuff, and it's like there's so many scammy people out there that these major fund managers should be able to spot this stuff, you'd think, by now. If a bunch of anons on Twitter can spot it, like, you'd think that these multimillionaires and billionaires managing billions of dollars worth of money should be able to spot, like, hey,
Well, I think you're a little wrong on that, because I mean, Mark Cuban, he's really into it as well, and I think the billionaires and whatnot, and these like really big fund managers can spot it, and they can also figure out a way how to profit off of it. So I think that is maybe the differentiator between the millionaire billionaires type crowd and just like the average normie. Because like the average normie goes in, they can get wrecked, and they can't afford they can't afford it after they get wrecked, whereas the millionaires billionaires can take a little bit of risk and maybe jump into something that maybe like you and I perceive as risky, and it's not going to make it, but there's obviously people are making some money on it here or there. So I don't agree with it at all or anything like that. I'm just trying to play a little devil's advocate here to say that maybe they're finding a way to make money on it. Either way, I'm not an investor with ARK anymore, because they just killed me last year. I jumped in at the hype, and I think I probably got in at the top, and buy at the top, sell at the bottom. That's what great investors do, right? So
awesome. All right, let's move on. Bottom line for me on that one, I like WGMI, excited to see it, and yeah, I guess it'll be a small part of my portfolio, and I like ETFs generally, but I also like picking individual companies, and especially in this relatively like budding sector. I've seen a lot of people, especially on the Canadian Bitcoiners podcast, they interview a lot of people that work in this industry. And so you can see the people that work for these companies, and they're still relatively small companies. So you get a good sense of where their head's at the moment. But yeah, bottom line for me on that one, I like WGMI. I'll continue to allocate a small portion of my portfolio to it.
All right, yeah, sounds good. Well, let's go to your next story. I think your next story and my next story kind of tie in together a little bit. So let's go into you introduce yours and then I'll kind of give you my opinion on it and lead into mine.
Sure. Yeah, very related now that I'm looking at it. Mine's pretty simple. So Cash App now has rolled out Lightning to everybody. They started doing this a few weeks ago to select groups, not select groups. I think they were just kind of slow rolling it out to make sure everything was functional. But if you have Cash App, you are now able to utilize the Lightning Network. For those of you who don't know, Lightning Network is a second layer technology. It sits on top of layer one of the Bitcoin blockchain, and it allows you to make transactions a bit faster. So Bitcoin blockchain, when you're making transactions on chain, it can be slow, it can be burdensome. With Lightning, what you can do, Brandon. So suppose you and I open up a Lightning channel between one another. You and I can send, we can send sats back and forth between each other without it ever going down to the chain until we close that channel. So a good analogy is like, I think I heard Nick Carter make this analogy on the Lex Friedman show. It's like a bar tab, right? So if you go to the bar, what are you going to do? Are you going to pay for each of your drinks individually, or are you going to, keep your tab open and go back and forth? I see you smirking, and I'm going to make a joke about it in just a second. So like it's much easier to just open a tab, go back and forth the whole night while you're buying drinks. For me, it's like, I don't know, 18, 19, 20 drinks. And then you could just close out at the end, right? So that would be like closing the Lightning channel. After you close out, then that goes down to layer one, that goes onto the actual blockchain. So it speeds up transaction time and it makes Bitcoin much more scalable. Now, Brandon was smirking there because I don't know what, 3 weekends in a row or something, you've lost your credit card. So now Brandon doesn't open tabs.
It's not 3 weekends in a row, okay? It's because the card doesn't come fast enough. It takes a week and a half for me to get the new card. So it was twice in 3 weeks that I've lost my card. Okay, so take it easy. And then I went to the bar the next time and I was like, all right, well, do you want to open and close your tab? So the first question I ask now is, do you take the card? And when they tell me yes, I'm like, okay, then I'm closing my tab. I don't trust myself. So I made this joke, and a nice Canadian fella next to me is like, "You're a funny guy. I'll buy you a tequila shot." And that night I wasn't planning on drinking, and then one thing led to another, and I got very intoxicated that night too. So, sometimes this works out better when I close the tab. I mean, I got a free shot out of it.
Yeah, so that's my that's my story. I'm thinking too, like, dude, how fucking wild is it that you just go to a bar and give somebody your credit card and they take it? Like, it could be someone that they just hired. It's just back there, like writing down names, credit card numbers, and then they're gone the next day. Like, it's pretty wild that you just let people take your card for extended periods of time, and you don't have eyes on it the whole time. Like, it is a pretty wild thing. But yeah, that's my story. It's Cash App. But why don't you just introduce what your story is? Then we can just talk about the whole thing.
Yeah, so mine is the Apple iPhone is now going to allow merchants to accept and send Bitcoin payments through their tap to pay feature. So right now they kind of have the tap to pay feature with Apple Pay. So like if you have your credit card or I think you could even deposit cash onto your card or onto your phone through Apple Pay, and you could just go up to certain merchants, like if they have the little credit card reader. A lot of them now accept Apple Pay, and instead of reaching out for your credit card, you could just tap with your phone. I think it's like double tap in the camera or something like that, or it's one of the buttons you just hit a couple times and your phone pops up, and you can even do it on your Apple iWatch too. So, it makes it like really simple. You don't even have to reach out for your phone. So this is big. I think both of these things are very big for merchants, right? So I think Apple and Square, now Block, are going to kind of be competing with each other, because Square implements their technology and all that into iPads. And so like when you go to a company or a small business that has Square, they're, using iPads to check you out, and then they have their little swipe feature for credit cards and everything. So that's their peer-to-peer transaction unit, right? So now if iPads can accept it and accept, crypto payments or Bitcoin payments, instead of using a credit card or anything like that, or even needing Square to be the middleman, Apple can essentially cut them out. So I think it's good for an Apple guy, but I'm also like a big block guy. So I'm a little worried on that, but I think Block implementing Lightning Network. One benefit of implementing the Lightning Network that you didn't mention was it's just extremely cheap. So normally credit card companies take like a 3 to 4%, I believe, is what Visa and Mastercard takes like every swipe. Lightning payments. We're seeing companies like Strike take like maybe 1 or 2 satoshis per transaction, which is not even a cent. So I think like overall the Lightning Network just going to make it cheaper for consumers, cheaper for small businesses, and it's going to either allow businesses to grow because they keep the same margins and people are just kind of used to paying that, or they can shrink their margin. It's going to make it cheaper on the consumer, and more people are going to go and buy their food or buy their product or whatever. So overall, I think it's just great for businesses and consumers both, because now it's another payment rail where it's easier to transact back and forth. And the fact that they're creating competition and they're kind of trying to cut out these like Visa and MasterCard people who have essentially had a monopoly on the transactions for such a long time, I think it's just great to see. And I think, the competition makes it better too, because Apple's a giant. Block is getting up there for sure, and Jack Dorsey is very ambitious, and I think he's always one step ahead of Apple right now. But the fact that Apple's getting in, I think it's just a matter of time before we see some other Apple make some other moves on the Bitcoin realm, whether that's announcing they have Bitcoin on their balance sheet or something else. I think they're starting to come around to the whole Bitcoin's the way to go narrative. The one small negative I am kind of discouraged is they said Bitcoin and crypto payments. So I think they're kind of hedging their bets now, and maybe they're starting to get into it, but hopefully they turn it around and they realize, okay, it's going to be Bitcoin only, but they're hedging it right now, which is the advantage to Block, I believe, at the beginning. But what are your thoughts on both of them?
My thoughts are pretty simple on this. I think Block's going to win this battle unless Apple goes all in on Bitcoin. I think Block's going to win this battle. Block is all in on Bitcoin. They're not talking about shitcoins. They're not talking about crypto. They're not talking about NFTs. They're not talking about Web3. They're talking to crush it. They're talking about Bitcoin, and they're building in things like the Lightning Network. Now, here's the other reason I think Block is going to win. Block's also rolling out, in my opinion, I mean, it's a very young feature, and we'll see how it develops. And I might be completely wrong about my projection on this, but Block also introduced a tax filing feature that I think has gone like really under the radar for people in the cryptocurrency space. Fuck that. In the block in the Bitcoin space, it's gone way under the radar. Because like, what's one of the number one things holding people back from spending their Bitcoin? It's having to worry about these fucking taxes, man. Like like if you're DCAing into Bitcoin or buying every week or buying every 2 weeks, it's hard to keep track of what your cost basis is. And then when you sell, it's very hard to keep track of all this stuff. Imagine that you just get your paycheck sent straight to Cash App. It's a portion of it goes into Bitcoin, and then you want to send that Bitcoin to somebody. Like Cash App has traces of all of that, right? And look, as you and I know this as true Bitcoiners, is like you really don't want Cash App custodying any of your stuff. You want to be in a hardware wallet. You don't want to have a custody. But for the simple fact of the matter is like where we are right now, and probably within the next 10 years, the vast majority of people, if you're going to onboard everybody, the vast majority of people aren't going to want to do that. They're not going to want to hold their own keys. They're going to want a custodian wallet that has a nice user interface that's easy to use. It's easy to go up to a terminal and scan a QR code and hit send, or get a Lightning invoice and pay it. Like that's going to be the vast majority of users. And so I think Cash App or Block is further along in that, like in getting to that point than Apple is. And the fact that Apple is unwilling to go all in on Bitcoin at the moment, it makes me quite like, I get it. They're hedging it, but it also makes me think, well, they're not here for the Bitcoin ethos. And it really seems to me like Jack Dorsey is. So I'm excited to see what they do, and I like Block. I really do like Block. So
Yeah, me too. I do like block as well. And the one thing that I'll kind of combat you with that is like, Square and Block and Cash App and all that, it is KYC Bitcoin. But because Jack Dorsey is so big into the Bitcoin ethos, we went to the Nashville Bitcoiners meetup on Wednesday, and there was somebody on stage that said, it's more about companies that are just using KYC because they have to with regulators, opposed to companies that are using KYC to get your data and figure out ways to kind of make you import more money and things like that. So I think, I believe that Block and Jack Dorsey is one of those companies that's just doing it because they need to. And, for tax filing and stuff like that, they definitely need your information to kind of help you with that. But I truly think that Jack Dorsey's in this for the right reasons. And, I could be wrong. I don't know him personally or anything like that. All I see is the guy in the tie-dye shirt and the big ass beard. But yeah, I mean, I think I think that it is a good company, and I'm very bullish on Block going forward as well. So yeah, shout out to that Nashville Bitcoiners meetup. We'll probably talk about that after our stories and everything. But yeah, so yeah, let's get into unless you got something else, let's get into my your last story, and then we'll get into mine to close it out.
I've got two more. I'll be quick on one. I'll be quick on both, but I think yours is your last one is the biggest one of the week. So I want to spend more time talking about that. Russia officially comes out and announces that they will be regulating cryptocurrencies. And like 2 or 3 weeks ago, the central bank of Russia, came out and said that they wanted to do a blanket ban on cryptocurrencies. And then less than a week later, Vladimir Putin, the president of Russia, basically said, no, we're not going to do that. To put it like politically, he encouraged lawmakers and the central bankers to work together to figure out a way to regulate rather than ban cryptocurrencies. Okay, so now they've officially released some guidance on how they're going to regulate. There's still a lot to come out and a lot to be translated properly, because there is a document completely in Russian that I can't read at the moment, but I did get to translate their little press release. So they will be regulating. You got to remember too, this is coming after like India went through the same thing. India's central bank said we should ban these things, and then the government decided not to. They're doing a flat tax of 30% on all cryptocurrency transactions. It's still not exactly clear what Russia will be doing, but they are going for the regulatory route rather than the ban. And I think it just makes so much sense for Russia. We've already seen last summer what happened in China. China completely banned this stuff. And we're seeing now in Kazakhstan, like right before we jumped on here, we were both looking at this story from Kazakhstan. That's basically like the president's calling for people to go out and find these cryptocurrency miners to tax them. Like Kazakhstan sits right underneath Russia. It shares a long border with Russia, and they've got rolling internet blackouts. They've got people getting kicked off of power grids because the winter is rough. And now it's like the president's calling basically for headhunters to go out and find these mining operations so that they can tax them. Russia's probably starting to look pretty sweet to some of these miners, and Putin understands that. Guaranteed, Putin understands that. Outside of that, I'll let you touch on that. Outside of that, I also want to say that Russia and China just settled an oil deal, and this will tie into your last story. But talk about Russia for a bit too. I'll get your thoughts on it. But Russia and China just settled an oil deal in euros, not in the US dollar, in euros. So yeah, what do you think? What do you think about Russia just deciding to regulate instead of ban?
Yeah, so I mean, we've been kind of talking about this on our spaces. We even put a little clip of it on our YouTube channel too. But I think Putin's very very smart when it comes to these geopolitical moves. So say what you want about him, he could be a bad guy. He's very what have you. We were even talking on our walk too about how this documentary we were watching on called Icarus, where this guy is like talking about the Olympics and how Russia went through their whole doping thing, and then he got a big approval because everybody in Russia was hopped up on steroids and won a bunch of medals, and then that he used that to invade another country. I think it was the Ukraine at the time.
It was
But
Crimea. That's when they
yeah,
rolled into
yeah.
Crimea.
So he's just like, he knows how to kind of work it and play the game, for better or for worse. Sometimes he uses it for bad things, and sometimes he uses it for benefits for Russia. And I think this is definitely a big benefit, for the exact reasons you were saying. He's saying like, okay, this is a big market. I forget the exact figure, but I think maybe it was like $15 billion in the Bitcoin mining sector. Don't quote me on that 100%, but we wrote about it in our newsletter on Monday, so check that one out. But yeah, it's a big growing industry, and they have a lot of natural resources out there in Russia in order to mine Bitcoin and do all that kind of stuff. So it's obviously beneficial. And like you were saying, Kazakhstan has a bunch of miners that moved from China to Kazakhstan after China banned Bitcoin mining, and Russia shares a border. So instead of going someplace like shipping miners all the way to the United States, Canada, North America, what have you, you can just move them across the border. And so why wouldn't you do that? Especially if Russia's like, come here, like, bring it all in here. So I mean, I definitely think it's a smart move for Russia. And they're becoming more Bitcoin and crypto friendly. And I think they're also starting to see a little bit of chink in the armor in the U.S. dollar. My last story is, I'll let the cat out of the bag. My last story is about inflation. We saw 7.5%. The numbers got released today, and the U.S. dollar, they just keep printing money and they don't know how to stop it. And so Russia and these other countries like China are seeing that, and so they're not really trusting the United States government to back the U.S. dollar anymore. And, it makes complete sense. I don't trust them to back the US dollar anymore, to be quite frank, because at the same time, it's like, okay, everything's going up in price around us, and they don't know how to stop it. And, if they're going to devalue the currency and everything like that, and they don't know how to deal with it, why are you going to keep using the US dollar for transactions? So, China and Russia using euros is pretty interesting, because I don't even, is Russia like, do they use euros there? Or do they have their own currency,
No,
or what?
so they operate on the ruble. But so obviously they're not. It's a deal between China and Russia. They're obviously not going to settle in the UN or the ruble, because then like it's like one is conceding to the other. So they've got to settle in something else. Now it's interesting that they didn't settle in the US dollar. They settled in the euro. It would have been awesome to settle in Bitcoin, obviously, but China's banned Bitcoin. So they can't come out and say we're going to settle a deal in Bitcoin. And you have to keep in mind that I think it was like less than a month ago, India and Russia signed a deal and decided that they would settle in their own currencies, so the rupee and the ruble. And Myanmar just dropped the USD for settlements and went with the UN. So we're seeing now a bunch of countries opting out of the US dollar. El Salvador adopted Bitcoin as legal tender in parallel with the US dollar. Like more and more countries across the world are opting out of using the US dollar. And you got here at 7.5%. Those are the official numbers. Brandon, we both live in the US. We both live in states that are like doing okay economically, especially you, like Florida's doing great economically. But we're still suffering the consequences of our national currency being devalued at 7.5% year over year, according to the official numbers. We know that's not the case. You're a homeowner. You know that your house hasn't gone up by 7.5%, has it?
Oh, it's gone up a hell of a lot more. So, I mean, it's definitely interesting. It's good and bad for me personally, because I do have a rental property and everything like that. Only one, so I want to buy more, and to be quite honest, it's getting tougher. And I know you're trying to buy a home, and it's definitely not not easy right now. But I just feel bad for all our friends and things like that aren't that have student loans debt and everything like that. And we have a generation of kids that in order to afford a house, they need to live at the parents' house until their late 20s, early 30s or something in order to buy a house. Or they need to make a lot of money, or just, lack of social life and everything like that. So just to, make it so they can quote unquote live the American dream. And it's getting really sad where we're seeing like inflation just affects so many people. And to be honest, like I had a bunch of friends that were telling me, during like the stimulus times, like, oh, everybody needs the stimulus check, they need these things to help pay the bills. Well, what bills are you paying? You're paying those bills to the landlord, the electric company, the grocery store, like all these big players, who benefited off of like COVID and everything like that. And now those like what $1,400 check, or what did they get? I think it was like $3,600 over 12-month period, maybe, or maybe even longer. Like, did that really help? Was that really worth how much we're inflating right now? Because to me, it's not. And the silent killer to the lower and middle class is inflation. And that inflation just drastically hurts people. And when those weekly grocery bills go from $200 to $250 when you're buying the same amount of food, it's like, all right, you either got to cut back on your food, and you're having growing kids who need to eat more and more and more, or you got to make sacrifices somewhere else. And sometimes, like, that means, all right, no after school programs for kids, no late night soccer teams, no things like that. So it's just like it breaks my heart seeing all these things, because I just think about all the negative effects that could come off of this. And it's not just, okay, like I can't afford to live. It's like, not only that, it's like the quality of life for young children, growing up. And so it just, I think of all people that are really losing during this time, it's the kids. They're having to be in school with masks on, and then now, potentially missing out on some activities that they would have previously had available to them with both their parents' income. Or, now, like, one parent was going to work and one was going to stay at home, and now both of them need to work. So instead of parents being raised by both our kids being raised by both their parents, it's being raised by a nanny or something else. So it's just it's a silent killer. And I think now people are starting to wake up to it more, because it's just so drastic, like you can't ignore it. If your grocery bills goes from $200 to $202, you don't really notice it. But now that it's going from $200 to like $250, you're like, oh shit, this thing's really smacking me in the face. So I know I just kind of rambled on a little bit and said a decent amount, but inflation, it's a beast that can't be stopped, it seems like, right now. And I don't know like a good solution for it or anything. It's just it's killing somebody. It's killing me to see like everything just go up so much in price. It's crazy.
Well, here's the thing. So, I mean, yeah, you mentioned like 10 things, and this is the state of where we are, because it's gotten to the point of being so frustrating, because it touches so many things that people don't even really think about in the long term. Like you're mentioning children. Man, all the shit that these kids have been through over the last 2 years, we won't see the actual effects of this until, I don't know, probably 5-10 years down the road. Like we won't see what kind of antisocial behavior this creates in children who are at that critical age of like 4 to 6 years old, where they're learning how to read like facial expressions and how to respond to those in social situations. Like obviously babies and infants are reading facial expressions, but it's not until you're like 4 or 5 years old where you're figuring out, okay, this is what it means. Like, this is what it means when someone wants to play with me, and what it means when people don't want to play with me. And so like we won't see those for probably 5 to 10 years. But we will see them 100%. But I want to go back to the price thing. Okay. So Brandon, you don't have to divulge any numbers here, but you own a home. And you rent part of that home. You can get as specific as you want. I'm going to try to keep it as vague as I can, but you rent part of it. Okay, the value of your home is going up drastically. What does that mean to you as the homeowner? Do you have to pay Like, do you have to pay more annually? And what do those fees entail? And then if so, what do you have to do to rent? Does the rent go up?
Yeah. So I'm just crunching some numbers here real quick just to see. So my home value has gone up. So I closed on my house in September of 2020. My home value has gone up approximately 40% in that time. So I don't know, that's like a month and or a year and a half or so. In that time, I had a renter um who came in and rented, and then now I have it on the market again. I was renting out to a friend who was looking out for a house, and he's just closing and everything. But the market rent now for this unit is 30% higher than it was, last year. So people will probably say greedy landlord, things like that, like your prices don't change. That's completely false. My taxes increased and my overall mortgage payment increased by, let me see the exact price. It increased by $200, but let me see how much that is like percentage wise real quick. So that's like 9-10%. But over like a 30-year period, assuming that it doesn't change, that adds up over time, right? And so it's not only that, it's all the repairs to the house now are increased price. Everything else is, increased price, like maintenance, everything that goes into the house, the electric bill, the water bill, all that kind of stuff. So like these things that I cover for the renter, not only that, they go up too. So and at the end of the day, in any business, whether you're running a rental property business, food business, anything like that, those costs have to go down to the consumer because people have to make money some way, shape, or form, right? It's still a business at
So
the end of the day,
so
right?
that's
So
100%
go
right. But
ahead.
this was kind of the point I was getting at, and it was just feeding off of your earlier point where it's like the people that this inflation hurts are the people that don't own assets. They don't own their own homes. They don't have equities. Like it's the lower and middle class that this stuff hits the hardest. And those were the people that all of these politicians, all of the people that called you an asshole, all of the people that called me an idiot, all of these people that said, no, the stimulus is a good idea. Well, the result of this stimulus, even a year after the case, is inflation at 7.5%, highest it's been since the early 80s. The consequences of this kind of inflation get passed down to the people that you thought you were helping a year ago. And people like you and I were saying a year ago, this isn't a good idea. The very people you think you're helping, you're hurting big time. And I just wanted to point that out because I know when you post your like house on Facebook and stuff, people call it, oh, the greedy landlord, rents up, rents way up, greedy landlord. They don't understand that the prices that you're paying are higher. They're way higher.
Well, exactly too. And like I think that, something that people don't realize is like everything is going to have consequences, right? So when I'm blanking on her name, but the redhead that does the White House talks, what's her name
Oh,
again?
Paskey, Jen Paskey.
Yeah, Jen Paskey. When she gets up there and says we're going to print trillions of dollars and it's going to cost the consumers and everybody, the American people, $0, that's completely false, right? Because like this money printing is obviously causing drastic inflation. And okay, we can get the fiat bros on Twitter and everything like that are going to say like, hey, it's not all just from the money printing. It's from the supply chain. It's from, loss of jobs and things like that. It's like, okay, there's obviously various factors as to why, inflation is at where it is, but money printing is definitely one of those factors, and it definitely could be avoided.
It's bullshit. Why do politicians feel comfortable shutting down entire economies? It's because they know that the Federal Reserve will print money and bail them out when they fail. Like it's a combination. You can't shut down your economy and print money and have your debt to GDP ratio go through the roof and expect inflation not to happen. Like you can't do it. But the politicians feel comfortable shutting shit down because they know their buddies at the Federal Reserve who are unelected. We don't get any say in who's at the Federal Reserve. We don't get to determine whether or not Powell's in there or not. It's an appointed position. And guess what? He was appointed by Trump. He's been appointed by Biden. Like This is across party lines. This is not a left-right argument. You know, this is like politicians feel comfortable shutting shit down because they know their pals over at the Federal Reserve will continue to print money for them and bail them out.
Oh, 100%. And we've mentioned this a couple times too. Like the reason private businesses work really well and like the United States has kind of become a powerhouse because of, it's partially because of capitalism. And it's like at the end of the day, if a business isn't good or if a business is overpricing things, it fails, right? If the business tries to become greedy and gouge and do all those things, like consumers like, all right, I'm not going to pay fucking $10 for an ice cream cone, right? Like that's just not going to work. I could go down the street and get another one or go get a pint of ice cream for $2 and scoop it out myself, whatever, right? So it's like these things that people don't really like think about logically, that it's like, okay, like somewhere these costs are not these things aren't adding up, like, right? So at the end of the day, it's just like you said, we're not electing officials like Powell, and they just keep on printing money, and then they're gonna come out and say things like, "Hey, like, well, nobody came into my office and said like, hey, you should raise rates because like that'll help the lower class." Like, no, I mean, at the end of the day, the rich are drastically benefiting off of this because they all have inflated assets. Like I just shared, I have a house that's gone up in 40% in a year and a half. But according to, CPI in the past year, it's only 7.5 inflation. Like, really? I mean, come on. Like, all these inflated assets are just jumping through the roof. And then, now, like, I can go to the bank, and if I wanted to take a home equity line of credit, I all of a sudden have like a shit ton more money in equity in my house when I've done like 1.5 years of payments in a 30-year mortgage, right? So, it just doesn't really make sense to me, these arguments that people are making. And I think people are kind of slowly starting to wake up. I think, I see it maybe on Twitter. So maybe I'm like kind of feeding into my timeline and things like that, and not really being as dialed in and kind of parsing through it. But yeah, I mean, like you were saying before, it just drastically affects the lower and middle class. And it's getting tougher to see like just all these people just getting screwed over so much.
I can tell I get you fired up. All right. And this is the kind of stuff, Brandon and I went on a run yesterday and we were talking about some of this stuff, and it's terrible. We get fired up about it because both Brandon and I grew up in households that were lower middle class and were affected heavily by the things that happened in 07 and 08, and the same things that were happening then. I mean, they're not the same exact things. Obviously, there's, I think, far more money printing and less like fraudulent loaning practices going on, or fraudulent lending practices going on. But it's the result's going to be the same. It's going to be the lower class and the middle class that are more drastically impacted by this. Now we have to keep in mind that this is state of Bitcoin. Fuck, we used to call this thing state of the coin. Now it's state of Bitcoin, but I, for some reason, have a hard time dropping the. So Bitcoin,
Same here.
Bitcoin fixes this because it's got a hard cap of 21 million and it's got set halving cycles that completely protect it against inflation. Nobody can print more Bitcoin. And there's nobody that's elected or non-elected that's a centralized entity that oversees this. It's hard coded, right? There's not going to be some instance in the future where I'm guessing anyways, and it's a strong guess, where the Bitcoin developers and all of the nodes agree that, oh, we'll just increase it by a couple million because we need a couple million more, right? Like it's just not going to happen. So I just want to kind of pull that back to like this fiat system that we're in. This is how Looney Tunes it is, man. Like they can just print trillions and then get on national television and tell you that it's going to cost you nothing when housing's up 40%, lumber's up 90%, oil's up how much? Like, I don't have all the numbers in front of me. And then they lie to you and tell you, well, if you remove housing and oil and food or whatever, it's only 7%. It's like, okay, well, don't I need all of those things to live? like Bitcoin, like, it's a meme on Twitter, but Bitcoin really does fix this shit, man. Like it's not going to inflate. it's it just won't. So I don't know. I just
Exactly.
wanted to kind of pull it back to Bitcoin, and we talk about
No,
this
for
stuff because
sure.
this is the economic backdrop that birthed Bitcoin, and it's what's making Bitcoin us like stronger and stronger argument for global use.
And I mean too, we'll see. Like, we've got a good friend, Masa Soncap on Twitter, who's always saying like the fiat bros will always come out on the days when they announce CPI numbers, and Bitcoin's down that day because the general narrative around Bitcoin too it is an inflation hedge, right? So like you said, although it's not exactly tied directly to Bitcoin, it kind of is, right? Because it's the overall macro environment. So, just to kind of bring it back to that, the daily price of Bitcoin doesn't matter when it's announcing the CPI numbers, but overall, exactly for the reasons that you said, Bitcoin is a good inflation hedge simply because of the hard cap of the 21 million, and the hash rate going to be halved every 4 years and everything like that, making it more difficult. I believe it's like 2030 something that all the Bitcoin will be in existence and in circulation too. So less and less coming out each year. And just overall, just keep on stacking, not financial advice. But let's move on. I know you got one more story before we'll give a little review of our Nashville Bitcoiners meetup. So yeah, what do you got for me? What's your last one?
Oh man, I think we were on such a great roll. I was hoping that would be kind of the last one. But the other big news that came out this week was that two people were arrested in connection with the Bitfinex hack of 2016. Stole close to 120,000 Bitcoin. At the time. It was worth like 60 million. At today's prices, it's worth well over 4 billion. And federal agencies in the US were able to recover, I think it was like 94,000 coins or approximately $3.6 billion worth of Bitcoin. Uh, I don't know, man. Let's wait to see what happens with this, because the two people that they have charged with these crimes, and they're not charging them by the way of hacking, they're charging them of like assisting or aiding in money laundering. But there was like 120 hacked and stolen, and they all went to this guy, like one guy's wallet, and then over the series of a couple of months or years, like it got distributed to different financial accounts that belong to this couple. And yeah, let's just say, I mean, the couple, like the woman has these crazy rap videos that are so bad. They're so bad. They're like almost as bad as Drake. They're bad.
Oh shit!
They're
Don't
bad,
tell
dude.
that to Joey. Oh
Yo,
shit!
yo, at Joey tweets at Drake, whatever Drake's Twitter handle is. Don't at me. Don't
Champagne
at me.
Poppy.
But
Oh shit!
it's look, they're really bad. These videos are very, very bad. So I don't know. I'll let the people decide, and I will just wait. I'll wait to see how this thing plays out.
Yeah, exactly. I'm there with you. The TikTok videos are unbelievable. Like, if you really thought that this person was has the mental capacity to fool all these people on the Bitcoin network and steal this much money, then man, I have little faith. I mean, I don't know. It's just they're terrible rap videos, very not self-aware, and there's not too much to say about it other than like somehow this idiot duped a bunch of people, or she was in connection of it. So we'll see how it all plays out. And
Yeah,
let's
I
let's get
do.
in. So what
I
were your
want.
go ahead.
I just want to clarify one thing. So you were saying, um, all the Bitcoin will be. I think you just missed a one. All the Bitcoin will be mined by like 2130 or 2140. You said 2030. I was like 8 years. Like 100 years after that. Hey,
Yeah. All
look,
right, my
look, boys, we're on the sauce tonight. All right, we're getting sauced up. It's
I've been drinking. I drank more than Dan today, which is kind of surprising. So normally Dan's the one that's getting sauced up, but I had a little Tito's and soda at dinner. So All right. Now let's move on. Nashville Bitcoiners meetup. It was my first one. It was your second or third one? Third. Okay,
Third.
so yeah, it was awesome. I really liked it. We're shout out to the what is it, Jackalope Brewing Company that hosted it. If you guys are in the Nashville area, I definitely recommend you check it out. But you need to get on the Meetup page and sign up soon for the next one because they get filled up. They limit it to 150. But yeah, overall, I met a lot of great people. It's kind of surprising in the Tampa Bitcoin Meetup that I go to, or I try to go to the in-person one every month. It's mostly just Tampa people. We get a few people that come in and out. It seemed like a lot of people were coming in from out of town for the Nashville one just because it was so big. We had a big crowd from Austin. I met a lot of people from there. We had some people come in from the Huntsville meetup that are starting down there. So if you're in the Alabama area, I believe they've done one meetup or maybe two, and they're starting a second one or a third one. And you can follow them on Twitter at Rocket City Bitcoin Meetup, at Huntsville BTC. So those guys were really nice, and they're trying to get their meetup up and running. So if you're in that area, or if you know somebody in that area, go ahead and check them out, and you can find them on Meetup or Twitter or anything like that too. So yeah, I mean, this one, it was overall good environment. We went in, they got some good talks, and no phones or anything like that too during it, which I thought was really cool. It's just you sit back and you actually connect with people, which it isn't too common too much these days. And it's really awesome to go to a Bitcoin meetup and just kind of talk about, like, shoot the shit, like kind of like what we do here. We do that in our spaces and things like that. So maybe we do it a little bit more regularly than the average person, but to go over and have a couple beers, once a month or something with some random people and get to be able to like actually have an unfiltered conversation and just, not have to feel like you're mincing words or anything like that. It's great. I really enjoy these Bitcoin meetups, and I hope to go to more in the future. And so, yeah, if you got a Bitcoin meetup around the country and you want us to come out, feel free to reach out to us on Twitter at Green Candle IT, or reach out to me at bkeys1010 or at PVO_Dan. So we're going to try to come to more of these just because, we enjoy connecting with them so much. So I know this is your third one. So what was your thoughts on it? Like, compare it to a couple of the other ones, and there's something new here that you liked on this one, bad, etc., etc.
It seems like they're all just so great. Like, man, the people that come in for these things, they do it for a reason. Like Glass. Well, we don't have to get into it, but like they come in because they're good. So we spent a lot of time talking with the folks down in Huntsville. Huntsville, by the way, is very tech heavy. It's been the home of NASA for decades. The one thing you have to look out for in Huntsville is I think the FBI just moved their headquarters down there. So be on the lookout for a few spooks there. But it's awesome. Brandon, how many people do you think? Wait, let me answer your question. Yeah, I thought it was a great meetup. I think all three of them that I've been to, this was their sixth one, so I've been to half of them. All three I've been to have been fantastic. I've learned a lot. It's not like you go and grab beers with people. You do that, but they actually give talks and presentations. So this month was all about free and open source software. So they had people come up in panels, and there's Q&A and things like that. And so there's drinking before and in between and after, but then you're also learning things too. Brandon, how many people did we meet last night where he said, "Oh, are you from the Nashville area?" What was the number one answer from people when you asked them if
I
they
would
were from the Nashville area?
I would probably say no.
Yeah.
Majority of people, I think, were from out of town, and they just all kind of came in. Which, like I said before, the Tampa meetup is very, Tampa centric. Everybody's in the Tampa Bitcoin or Tampa Bay ish area, St. Pete, whatever. Which is good. Like, you're building that local community and everything like that. But I think we had people drive like from different cities. I know we talked to a guy from Chattanooga for a while. We had a couple people that I met from Nashville too, but
Well, how many
it's
people?
definitely more of a mixed crowd, I would say.
How many people? If you said like, oh, like if they were from Nashville and you said, did you grow up in Nashville? How many of them told you that they had recently moved to Nashville in the last few months? And where was the number one location they were moving from? That's almost
Yeah,
everybody I talked to.
almost everybody was moving out of California to somewhere else. And I know that like you're from like the Cleveland area, right? So it's a little different for you. For me, it's kind of like, I don't know, it almost feels like Austin because I grew up in Austin, and when I was growing up, that was the hot spot for Californians to move in, was to move to Austin, Texas. And they're still doing that right now to this day, and it's still a rapidly growing city. But people have caught on to Nashville too, and have caught on to Florida. But yeah, we also got a little comment from one of the guys that says like everybody in California kind of looks at Florida as like a bunch of hillbillies and things like that. And it's funny because everybody in Florida kind of looks at California a little different of a way too. So overall though, I thought, in general is great people. I thought, connecting with Bitcoiners is great. And everybody was like super friendly too. And I think everybody was there to try to educate. I got a lot of questions like, oh, like, what do you do? What are you trying to get into Bitcoin? Like everybody's trying to help facilitate and, help you learn, help you grow, and help you, get to where you want to be. So, that's just one thing I've always loved about the Bitcoin community as a whole, is that, everybody's been very generous with their time with us, and always been very generous when I met in person and everything like that. So good on you to the Nashville Bitcoiners meetup. One recommendation though is like you guys gave out stickers, coasters, and all those kind of things, is like maybe make a little bit smaller of a sticker, because that sucker is fucking huge, and so I can't put it anywhere. But anyway, other than that, like I enjoyed it, and I know you will probably be back on another one for sure. I will probably try to move back or move to or come to another one at some time in the near future. But yeah, the Huntsville one, there was people from Austin, and then people from like scattered all over Tennessee. That's where all I met. Anywhere else you have?
No, I just think, I mean, almost everybody I talked to, when I asked them, are you from, look, you said I was from the Cleveland area. Thanks for the docs, by the way. No, I'm joking. I'm proud to be from Cleveland, Ohio, or at least outside, a little bit outside of Cleveland, Ohio. And I moved here from Birmingham, Alabama, and before that I was in the Carolinas, and before that I was in Memphis. And so it's not like I moved here in the last 2 years. The vast majority of people I talked to moved to the Nashville area, or they were either from out of town, in town specifically for the meetup, or had recently moved to Nashville from California in the last 6 months to a year. And it just shows you like this. Okay, these states like Florida and Tennessee and Texas, like people want to be able to work, man. Like they want to be able to express their opinions. They want to be able to live normal lives, and these are the states that are doing it. And that's a big part of the Bitcoin ethos. And so I'm just always happy to see, my first question to these people when they come in is like, man, how are you liking the state so far? Like, what's different about it? What do you think? And everybody says, I'm just so happy that I can come and I can speak my mind. I don't have to worry about it. I don't have to be worried about being, blacklisted from friend events and things for just speaking my mind. Like that's what it's all about. You should be able to speak your mind. And I'm always glad to meet people like this that took that leap. And well, look, we take it full circle back to our inflation talk. A lot of people like that are in positions where they can afford to move out, especially in a housing market like it is today. And the people that can't but want to, those are the people that are hurt the most. And so just to take it full circle back to your inflation point, it's like, Man, this stuff that you think over the last 2 years has been helping the lower classes has been killing them. It's been killing them. So, all right, man. Do you want to just jump into quick on-chain stuff and wrap it?
Yeah.
Give
I
me
guess
give me
just
your
one
final
more.
point. Give me your final point on that one.
Yeah, I just the inflation thing that we're bringing back to it, just it reminds me of this one guy thing that this guy was saying. I forgot where it was exactly, but I know it was like right outside the San Francisco area, and he was telling us that there's a friend of his that bought a 1 bedroom house. I didn't even know they make this, and I think it was like for less than 700 square feet.
Yeah, it was
So
700, I think.
yeah, so in the in the Tampa area, I had a 1 bedroom apartment for for 700 square feet. And when I first moved, I was going for like 1700 in a nice area of town. Now it's going for a little over that a 2 grand because of inflation and whatnot. But it's nothing compared to the 1.2 million that he bought this house for, which is insane. So you can see why people are leaving California. It's like, you know, I get it, like it's a booming tech and industry and things like that. And there's obviously, a lot of innovation that went on in the Silicon Valley area at one point in time. But I just can't see how a 1 bedroom house being 700 square feet selling for 1.2 million is sustainable at all. So um, that really stood out to me. But yeah, let's get on to the on-chain stuff. What you got for me? What are we looking at price right now?
Yeah, like I said, we're going to shorten this on-chain stuff. Look, we want you to come to our page to get stuff that you can't get anywhere else. And what that's going to be is our opinion on some of the latest and greatest in the Bitcoin world. The on-chain stuff you're going to be able to find anywhere, right? So we're going to shorten this stuff down. And yeah, I mean, price wise, Brandon, we're looking at, when I wrote this anyways, this is stupid. I'm not going to tell you what it was when I wrote it. I'm going to pull up the price right now.
I got it. I got it for you. I mean, in our low budget op, I can make it up for you. But anyway, I got it. It's like 43,000 right now, just a hair under $300.
Okay.
So it's a little bit down on the day, but overall, I think it's about down 1.4% at the
Yeah, I'm seeing
time
about
of this
one.
recording.
I'm seeing about 1% down on the day, up 16.2% on the week, up just
Yeah.
over or just under 2% on the month, and wow, surprisingly down like 9% on the year. But that's okay because we were pumping last year at this time. So
Wow,
price
really? You
wise,
have is that year to date? Because I have the past 3 months were down 33% in
oh
the
no no
past
no,
three
that's
months.
that's the last 12 months.
Okay, yeah, last 12 months I have down like 3.5%.
Yeah.
So I guess it kind of depends on that. But anyway, yeah, I agree. We're kind of pumping. It was interesting too. I don't know if you saw this, but I saw Business Insider, Penn's arch rival, that's been trying to take down Barstool Sports and Dave Portnoy and everything like that. But that's for another time. They were hosting a Twitter space today. Let me see if I could find the exact title of the Twitter space, but it was essentially going in about how Bitcoin is bouncing back and the bottom is over and all this and that. And the first thing that went in my head is like, oh shit, why the hell are they talking about price? Because every time we talk about prices, it falls down. But yeah, here we go. It's here's the title of the space. It was Bitcoin ready for aggressive recovery, reversal confirmed. And it was the host was Bitcoin, our Business Insider, Markets Insider, and some crypto account, and then some girl that I don't recognize. Her name was Lila. I don't know. I can't see her last name in here. But anyway, those were the four hosts. And I don't know. When I see things like this, I'm just like, all right, I don't feel super confident because now like it's seemingly like the normies are kind of getting in. So we'll see. I think we're kind of still holding steady around this like 44 realm. We're still tipping on fofos. Shout out Mike Jones.
Well,
But yeah, let's talk about some of the other M metrics and what else you got. What's your opinion on this price?
let me say this, and then we can talk about. I mean, the other metrics are fine. Let me say this about Business Insider. Fuck you, Business Insider. I stand with Dave Portnoy, and I would love for Dave to come on the show and shoot the shit with us. I know he recently bought in. I think he bought 29 Bitcoin or Bitcoins, depending on what camp you're in. But fuck Business Insider, dude. These scumbags want to go at people. And they do it so obviously right before Penn earnings. I'm not a Penn holder. I don't give a fuck what happens to Penn stock. They do it so obviously to try to tear people
I'm
down.
a pen holder, so I care.
So you can't talk about it. But it's, it's like, it's so clearly a hit job that it's ridiculous. All right, let's talk about these. Oh, we see Max in the background there. What up, Max?
Scumbag just needs to move to another spot in the bed.
Max,
Unreal.
dude. Max is the kind of dog that would move from Tennessee to California. No offense.
Oh man, that's fucked up. That's honestly fucked up. Max just likes to go. He has one speed. It's either all in or dead asleep. So he'll wake up ready to go in the morning, and I need to take him on a walk, and then he'll come back and sleep. And then at noon, he's up ready to go and need to take him on the walk, and then he'll sleep, and then he's up at 4 or 5 o'clock, and he's ready to go, and he wants me to take him on a walk. That's about it. So I mean, it's perfect for working at home because he just sleeps most of the day. But I need to give him his little exercise and help him along his weight loss journey too. So don't forget that. Stand with Max. Hashtag I'm with Max.
Yeah, I'm with Max too. I was just giving him some shit. All right, let me rattle these things off, and then let's wrap this thing up because we need to download it and upload it and drink several more beers before we go to bed. Market cap, we're sitting at about 840 billion. Spend output profit ratio, so this is SOPR that we love so much, sitting right around 1. Again, if you're above 1, it means on average the market's selling at a profit. If you're below 1, it means that you're selling at a loss. If you're hovering right around 1, it's looking pretty good to me. It means that when you get these dips, so like we had a pretty prolonged dip, and then we got a little bit more of a bump up towards, over 40. And then we're sitting around 43, 44. Well, I love that because we were sitting at 30s for quite a while and we were kind of building up some volume. I was wondering if people would sell off as we jumped up into the 40s, but it looks like we're sticking right around 1 more or less. Love to see that. Block height at the time that I was writing this was 722,693. I'm sure it's gone up a few blocks since then. And the mean block interval time, so this is the average block interval time at the time that I wrote this, which was right before we started, was 9 minutes and 47 seconds, slightly below the 10-minute mark that they are aiming for. So yeah, man, that's like kind of I think that's going to be the on-chain stuff that we look at, and it's just going to be presented in a really easy way to look at. Well, you're obviously listening to us and not looking at the newsletter, but it's just the metrics and what they are. We got some feedback from people and they said, hey, try to shorten up the letter a little bit and then make it more in your personality. Cause I think that's what brings people to us. We get these huge growth spurts when we have good spaces, and that's when our personality comes out. So we're going to try to get that across more in some of our content, including our newsletter. So that's what I got, man.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So, I mean, let us know what you think. We're just kind of starting out to this podcast. So, we're ripping. We have a guest next week. So a little teaser on that. I'm not going to divulge who it is just in case that doesn't happen, but I'm fairly certain that it will. But anyway, yeah, so we're if you guys know anybody that you suggest some guests to, feel free to reach out or tweet at them and tag us, and we'll be sure to heckle them and hit it with a bunch of retweets and likes and all that stuff, and we'll send our bots that Dan pays all the time to increase his Twitter likes and everything like that at them too. But yeah, other than that, I think that's it for me. Do you want me to list off all the stuff that we're doing because you always forget something?
Let me try to do it. All right, everybody.
All right.
We put out now 2 newsletters a week. We were doing 3. We've decided to drop 1 and focus more on 2. Because if, pump it up. So we do one on Monday, which is basically what we're doing now is we're picking a financial sector. This month we're doing Bitcoin mining. So we do kind of a sector overview, and then we go into individual companies within that sector. So again, we're doing Bitcoin mining now. We put out our sector overview this past Monday. And then over the next several Mondays, we're going to basically do a deep dive into individual Bitcoin mining companies. After that, who knows what we do? Maybe we do, software or whatever. It could be anything, really. Healthcare, it could be anything. Pharmacies, anything. Tobacco, we could do the tobacco industry. That might be sick. But yeah, so that's our Monday newsletter. On Tuesday, the day after that, we do a Twitter Spaces starting at, Brandon, it's 8 p.m. Eastern.
Yeah, 8 p.m. Eastern time.
8 p.m. Eastern, we start Twitter Spaces. We just go for an hour or 2 hours, whatever it is. If the conversation's ripping, we'll keep it going. And then Friday, we put out our State of Bitcoin newsletter. That's just a weekly wrap up of everything that's happening in Bitcoin. And our Bitcoin podcast comes out that same morning. So that's what you're listening to right now. And then Friday afternoons, we do a Twitter Spaces on Bitcoin. It's a Bitcoin happy hour. We just shoot the shit with other Bitcoiners. It's typically co-hosted by BTC Gandalf, ourselves, the Canadian Bitcoiners podcast, Joey and Len, and Masa usually shows up. Masa's almost always there, so we can just include him as he's a co-host, right, Masa? And yeah, and then we have a bunch of people usually jump in and out, and it's a good time, man. Sometimes those things go for hours, and you can listen to me get progressively drunker through those too, which is always a fun time. But yeah, that's what we got. We've got and then for our Monday, I say we put out our stock breakdown. The Sunday before that, we do our Sunday Scary Stock Talk, which is our other podcast episode. So, geez, Brandon, yeah, Sunday we've got a podcast that comes out. Monday we've got a newsletter. Tuesday we've got a Twitter Spaces. Friday we've got a newsletter, a podcast, and a Twitter Spaces. What did I miss?
Exactly. You didn't miss anything. So I'm proud of you. I thought you were going to miss the Sunday Scary Stock Talk, but
it's one of my favorite ones.
I mean, yeah, man, we're cranking out the content over here at GC. So, we're trying to provide everything for you guys, and be sure to give us a 5-star review. Tell your friends to tell their friends. We're trying out here to grow, and your like and a 5-star rating and everything like that would be greatly appreciated. Hey, if you give us a 5-star review, maybe we'll start reading them off. I don't think any Bitcoiners podcast ever reads any 5-star reviews ever. So, if you want me to do that, I'll be more than happy to do that every single podcast episode. So, that's it for me. I think that's it for you, Dan, too. So that's it from the boys at Green Candle and State of Bitcoin. So keep on stacking those sats, baby. All right, we out.
Yo, Brandon, where you at?
We outside. Aha.